On this episode of Into the Unknown, I am joined with my friend and teammate, Mr. Taylor Youngling. How you doing today, man?
Not too bad, man. Not too bad. Got my government name on blast right out the gate, huh?
It's a little it's a little scary, man. So for the rest of the interview, I'm gonna call you Thor, man, because I had to look up your name on Facebook while I was trying to get a hold of you for the podcast, and I couldn't
Uh,
remember your
yo,
name.
what's this dude's name actually though? like, I
So Thor, man, let's just jump into it. So, who are you? Where are you from?
was born in New Jersey, but I don't actually identify too much with that state. I mean, I've got family that lives there that I visit, but my parents were on the older side, and they decided to do the let's retire to Florida thing when I was in like middle school, and I lived there from basically middle school through my master's degree in history before moving up here to Milwaukee, where we are now, and I'm starting a PhD program at Marquette somewhat soon. So Florida is a nice place to visit. My fiance and I were ready to leave. It's a weird place to live. A lot of Florida man stories in that place are more true than you may wish to understand how true they are.
Thor, I can only imagine. So, man, I want to learn a little bit more. What got you into history? That usually seems like a pretty unique subject to actually pursue, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at least a small part of it was probably my grandpa. He was kind of like a history guy, sort of on the like hobby side of things. You know, he was like a World War II kind of grandpa. Not that he served, but he like liked World War II and he like talked about it all the time, kind of thing. So that might have been like my first foray into it. But in high school, I was blessed enough to have some really good history teachers, especially a really great world history teacher whose name I still remember, Mr. Woodbury. If you're out there, bro, I remember. um, and I really enjoyed how he ran his classroom. One of those things where like you're in the high school age and you're sort of impressionable and you see somebody that you think is like cool and smart and you're like, man, like, maybe I could do something like that, with my life. Maybe I'll be like a high school teacher or something. Um, and that led me to do my bachelor's in history because I decided like I definitely wanted to teach history, ideally at like the university level, which is why I'm going for my PhD now. But you start with your bachelor's. I ended up doing a double major. I got interested in religious studies as well, and the two sort of complement each other. As a child of the early 2000s, not to be a bummer, but growing up in a post 9/11 world, there's a lot of like strange history and religious ideas floating around, people saying different things about different groups of people and their particular belief systems. That's always been a part of it too for me, kind of wanting to, a lot of people think that they know things or they know history or they know like religions of various sorts, but a lot of them kind of don't, and I wanted to be able to know things. I have this, for better or worse, a chronic thirst to like know things, and sometimes it's been somewhat depressing. Some of the books you end up reading in your time as a history student, you're like, the dark underbelly of humanity kind of stuff. I just kind of followed that path through. Like I said, I got my two bachelors. I did my master's degree in European history at the same university, UNF, University of North Florida. Go Ospreys, my alma mater. And then when I finished up that, there wasn't a whole lot keeping me in Florida. I ended up finding Marquette and moved on up.
How'd you get involved in rugby? Because obviously that's how we know each other.
Kind of funny. I was always a bigger kid all through basically like my entire life. Whenever you're a big kid, and any big kids out there can probably attest to this, as you're growing up, like before you get to the middle school or high school age, everybody's like, "Oh, big boy, you're gonna play football, right? You're gonna play football." So like in my head, I'm like, "Yeah, I guess I'm big. I'm gonna go play football. That sounds cool or whatever." Um, I was younger, I was more of a soccer player, but I got too big for it ultimately. Um, in high school, I tried out for football. I went to the whole Hell Week thing, like my freshman year, all over summer, doing two a days and everything. I put all the work in, and I was still a bigger kid. I'm not the most naturally athletic person at all. I don't come from very athletic stock. I got to work very hard just to be like passable. Um, and I was still a bigger kid, and when it came to actual playtime, if you're a kind of bigger kid in high school football, they're going to put you on the line, like probably O line, right? And I wasn't having fun with it at all. And I went to the coach one day. I was like, "Hey man, like I'm really not enjoying the O line. It's like super boring to me. Like I'm sorry to anybody who is a a lover of the lineman position, but it's not for me. Like, and I was like, man, can I do anything else? Like, please, like anything. Let me run around. Let me maybe have the chance to hold the ball, like something. And they just pretty much told me no. I was like, all right, well, see ya. Like, I don't want to play this anymore. How I originally looked up rugby, um, I was just sitting in my room one day, and this was after I left football, and I don't even know where I had heard the term rugby or the name of the sport. But somewhere in my life, in the back of my memory, I was like, I think there's a sport called rugby that's kind of like football. I'm just going to look it up on YouTube just to kind of like check it out. And the first rugby video I ever watched was something like biggest rugby hits of like 2006, and I was like, oh, this looks good, and I hit play on YouTube, and it's got that here comes the boom like song on the playing on the background, and it's just all highlights of people just like they're getting dump tackled, there's dudes bleeding everywhere, there's one dude like tackles somebody, picks him up, and he's like running them back down the sideline. I was like, yo, look at this. Um, and at that time, I didn't have any opportunities. I didn't have like a high school rugby team or anything like that. It wasn't very popular where I went to high school. So I tried to make a point, like, when I go to college, I'm gonna really try and find a school that has a rugby team. But forget who cares about the academic prospects of a school, right? Like, let's find the rugby team, right? So when I was going on tours to the different universities I was going to go to, I was asked like, "Hey, do you have a rugby team?" Because I'm like really interested. And just so happens at UNF, the guy who was giving the like pre-freshman tours was on the rugby team. So as soon as I said something about rugby, he was like, "Oh yeah, man, we definitely do. Like we're really sick. Like it's really cool. Like you should definitely come here." Blah blah. And I was like, "Cool,
I'm
man.
sold.
Let's do it." My high school grades were like okay, but they were good enough to get in, but they gave me that like you come in summer kind of like trial run almost, like you don't really get like that halfway
Or yeah,
accepted thing.
academic probation.
Yeah, exactly. So I started in summer, and so I'm like in the school, I'm in my dorm. My roommate was a weirdo, but that's like another situation entirely. How do I find the rugby team, bro? Like it's like a giant university. Like, what do I even do? Like, I don't know the schedule. I don't know where to go. I'm like brand new to this place. Like, I have no idea. Walking around campus, and there's this guy, and he's walking around. This is again, you remember this is Florida. Like people walk around with no shoes on, no shirts, even university all the time. This guy is wearing just board shorts, like baggies, like swim trunks, no shirt, no shoes, and he's like meandering around on this big grassy area that was like a common area called the Green, like at this university. And he's walking around. I'm walking towards him, and I could see him like basically like harassing and haranguing people. Like I don't know what he's saying to them, but I'm like, what is this dude's like drunk on campus? Like what's happening? And I get up to close enough to like in earshot of him, and he sees me, and he comes over, and he's clearly intoxicated, and he goes, "Hey man, do you want to play rugby?" And I'm like, yeah, actually, I do. As a matter of fact, like can you help me do that? And it seemed like he was sort of taken aback by that. Like he'd probably asked this to like 100 people, and they were all like, "Dude, get away from me! You're a drunk idiot! Like, stop talking to me." So when I said yeah, he was like, "Oh, well, yeah. They have practice over on this field on Thursday. What's your number? I'll pick you up and we'll go tomorrow." And I was like, "Sick, dude! Like, let's do it." So that's actually how I initially got not just interested in rugby, but on the field at some point too.
I love that, man. So I had a very somewhat similar story. I was looking for the team, saw them online, reached out before I started,
Yeah,
excited to play. No response. You learn later it's just a rugby team and they're busy doing other stuff.
yeah.
And finally we had our student like kickoff freshman orientation bash or whatever, the party. Everyone's in the quad and I see the women's team and
Mm,
I go up to them. I'm like, "Hey, there's a men's team here, right?" And they're like, "Yeah, we don't know where they are. They were supposed to show up, haven't showed up." But
classic.
she gave me someone's contact info that was, somewhat viable to come meet me, and then I joined the team shortly after. So the next question is, where'd Thor come from?
Somehow I knew you were gonna ask me this. Everybody always asks this. So there's technically two parts to this story. One is the origin, which is actually not that cool or interesting of a situation, and then the second is like, wow, did that really happen, kind of thing. So the original origin is that when I first came to college, I first started playing rugby, like my freshman year of college. I had very long blonde hair. Like this is Florida. I'm going for the whole like surfer thing. So all the way down to my shoulders, like bright blonde. Um, Additionally, the Thor movies had like the original Thor Avenger movie like had like just come out basically. And then the other thing which worked in my favor is that as you've revealed to everybody, my government name is Taylor. Um, there was already another Taylor on the team. So as you know, anybody who's ever been on a rugby team, if there's
Can't
already a
have two.
dude with one name, you can't have two. So somebody ends up with a nickname. Um, and it was literally just one day of practice, like all good nicknames. Some dude just said like, "Oh hey Thor," like something like that, and it just stuck. And I was like, wow, given all the other nicknames of people that I have heard in my rugby career, like I definitely could have done worse. Like I'm standing around with other dudes, like this dude's name is Twiggy, and this is like Sweaty and stuff, and I'm like, cool, Thor suits me fine, bro. Like I'm really okay with that one. That's pretty cool. And at that point, I was already, as a pet interest, kind of into Norse mythology and stuff anyway. So really, it clicked really well with me. So that's like the not as interesting story. There's a second part, which this comes. This is like, no, this is probably 5 or 6 years ago now. So this is deep into my uh, my rugby career, as you could say. And there was this one day, or one night, evening, I should say. Um, this is right after rugby league practice, so the semi-pro team, the Axemen I was playing with, um, and we actually had practice inside the stadium that night because there's a really bad thunder and like lightning storm. And anybody who's lived in Florida or anywhere in the South, like in the dog days of summer, July, August, you can guarantee that sometime like from 4 to 7 there's going to be some kind of horrific lightning storm that'll last like an hour at most and then like go away. But that was right where when we were going to have practice. So we had practice inside. Florida's extremely dangerous with lightning, as it turns out. It's like I think that it's technically the lightning strike capital, like the world. Like there's a lot of lightning going on there, so they don't mess around with that at all. We had practice inside, but it's still, like pissing down rain, thunder, and lightning after practice. And I parked way out in like the university parking lot, like half a mile down the road, basically. So one of the guys who parked closer, I was like, "Hey, can I get a ride over to my car just so I don't have to walk in like the horrible rain and lightning and all that?" And they're like, "Yeah." So it's these three guys basically are all caravanning out to like their cars. Two of them like live together or something like that. So they just helped me carpool. I get out to the parking lot, and I'm probably, I don't know, I'm maybe like 20, meters from my car where they like pulled up to stop. And I'm like, all right, cool, guys, thanks. And I'm waiting. I'm like looking out. It's still pissing down rain, thunder, and lightning. And I'm waiting for a lightning strike so that after that lightning strike, I'm like, all right, I probably have some time and I'll get out. So I'm like waiting, waiting, waiting. Lightning strike, thunder. I'm like, all right, see you guys. I get out in the rain. I've got no shoes on because I've taken my cleats off. I'm just carrying them, and I have my key in my hand. And you've seen my car. It's a box Pontiac Sunfire that doesn't have automatic uh, unlocking. Like I actually had to put the key in the door to unlock it. So I'm going out and I'm like hurrying over to the car. I'm like, all right, I got some time. Like there was just a lightning strike. Everything's good. And as I put the key in the car, all I see suddenly is white, like flashbang Call of Duty, like white. And before I can even like understand what's happening, I feel a jolt come up my hand that I have in the car, up my arm, down my side, and down my leg, and it blows me like on my ass. Like the next thing I realize, I'm on my back and looking up at the rain. And now all the guys that had just helped me to the car are still there. Like this, they hadn't driven away yet, and they're all dying laughing. Like they think that I just got like scared or something and fell over like from fright. And as I get up, this whole side of my body is like tingly, like almost like
Oh,
it's like the fall asleep kind of feeling. And I'm like, guys, I don't think no, this is not funny. Like something like my whole body's like tingly right now, and they're like, "Oh, shit, dude, are you okay? Are you good?" I'm like, I don't know, I don't know. I'm like, I think I'm okay. I'm just like really tingly. So I don't think that I actually got struck because I didn't have like any burns or anything on me. But I think maybe the antenna of my car or something nearby got struck, and because I didn't have shoes on and I was standing in like a puddle or whatever, some amount of that jolt went through my car, through me, and threw me on my in the middle of this rainstorm. So after that, everybody was like, "Oh well, Thor's been struck by lightning, so he really is Thor. Like it's confirmed now." Like,
the confirmation is real.
yeah, it took a few years, but it came.
Going back, man, on everyone's journey, everyone's path, there's a chance to go east, a chance to go west. You make a decision, you don't know the outcome. Can you think of a time where that happened for you?
I think probably the biggest one for me, um, yeah, is probably actually my move to Milwaukee after I finished my master's degree. Basically, because it was the middle of the pandemic. I had aspirations for going to Marquette University here and doing my PhD program, but I didn't have any assurances because many universities during the COVID crisis, uh, especially in the doctoral side of things, they stopped taking new doctoral students. So I was in contact with one of the professors over at Marquette before we moved, and he was like, we'd love for you to apply. Like, obviously, it's very competitive, but right now, we're not even taking applicants. So I looked at my girlfriend at the time, my fiance now, and I was like, I don't know, man. Like it's kind of risky to move like across the country, and like, what if you get all the way there and you don't get in? I'm gonna look like a goose if I moved all the way here and I don't even get into this place. Like, who knows how long COVID's gonna last? That kind of thing. Um, but like I said before, we were ready to turn that page, and be out of Florida and start something new. And I guess we figured like we could always come up with some kind of plan B. There's other universities or whatever, that kind of thing. Having a friend on the rugby team up here definitely helped. We came up and visited him before COVID. So we got to see a little taste of the city and know that we liked it. We didn't just move to a random city across the country sight unseen. And it was only this past year that Marquette started accepting applicants again. I worked at a paint store as the assistant manager for a few years and just bided my time. Like like I said, I'm not super into sales, so it wasn't like the most gratifying, but it kept the lights on. And Yeah, this year I applied. You have your application in by January, and come March, April, they normally let you know where you are. And I was lucky enough to get in.
So, last question before I let you go. Title of the podcast, Into the Unknown. What is your version of stepping into the unknown? I think you probably talked about it a little bit, but just what are you up to?
I mean, not to sound like a broken record, but my main focus right now is definitely the PhD prep thing. I have most of my books for the classes because I'm going to be taking a full like repertoire of classes as well as working at the university as like a TA or in some sort of facet like that. I'm sort of always pushing myself a little bit into the unknown just because I never know what kind of reading material or monograph is going to be required reading for a class. I've got the book right here right now. I'm doing Legacy of Violence, History of British Empire. You can see it's pretty long. I'm maybe the third, close to halfway through. And having my background in Irish history, I'm not shocked to hear some of the not so nice sides of the British Empire, but still, there's much more to learn. So every time I crack open a book, I'm pushing myself sort of into something of the unknown, and I try to do that basically for a couple hours every day if I can.
Thor, man, thanks again for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure, man. This was fun.